Welcome to Bear in Global Channel. Russia lost its southern lands. Russian army is evacuating its soldiers. Ukraine started very violent operations on the southern front. Military equipment sent by Western countries began to arrive in Kiev. The great collapse of the Russian army began. Russian soldiers retreated to the last line of defense. The control of the Dnieper passed completely to Ukrainian army. Russia created a buffer zone in the last 15 kilometers. Russian engineers and commanders were evacuated from Ukrainian territory. Breaking the last line of defense of the Ukrainian army could result in the fall of Crimea. While the statements were being made, the attacks on Crimea were repeated. Ukraine started attacks to seize control of Crimea. Ukrainian missile systems returned to Crimea. Ukrainian leader Zelensky reiterated his promise to take Crimea. In this process, Moscow made a complete return to Iran. Tehran said it would supply Moscow with ballistic missiles and unmanned aerial vehicles. There was a harsh intervention from United States to Iran. Russian army will experience a huge problem of soldiers and ammunition in this process. Therefore, Moscow announced that it would send to the front, including female pilots. Tensions continue to rise in the region due to Putin's ambitions. After the Russian missile hit Moldova, the surrounding countries entered the war. However, in response to these moves by Russia, the Ukrainian army captured almost all of the critical areas on the front. On the front line, the Russian army began to lose about 1,000 soldiers. Kiev takes the oath of victory. Tension rose like never before. Russian sailors destroyed a Ukrainian kamikaze drone off the coast of Crimea. A Ukrainian UAV was detected as it was about to launch an attack on Crimea. However, while one UAV was destroyed in Crimea, another UAV targeted a command post. A large explosion occurred in the area. The incident occurred late at night, but despite the low visibility, the drone was able to launch a successful attack. While it is not specified from which direction the UAV came, it is thought that the UAV was launched from a distance of about 3 kilometers into the Sevastopol Bay. On the other hand, Russian army began to evacuate its engineers and commanders on the southern front in the morning. Troops in the south began to return to Russian territory again. Ukrainian troops are preparing for a major operation. In this process, conflicts continue on the front. Ukrainian forces reached Black Sea. To east of Kherson, Ukrainian forces crossed a defensive line and reached the Black Sea. Therefore, Russian army can now easily be surrounded. Therefore, Moscow began to withdraw its soldiers and engineers to prevent further casualties. In the region, a large number of long-range artillery units of Ukrainian army and HIMARS multiple rocket launcher systems were deployed to the border of Kherson. Transactions can start at any time. If the Russian army cannot solve the problem of ammunition and soldiers, it will soon lose Kherson. Shipments through Crimea continue, but Ukrainian forces have an advantage in terms of military equipment and personnel. The fate of the southern front will be determined very soon. Moscow has announced that it will send female pilots to the front to solve this problem. According to Moscow's statements, the pilots are experts in the transport and operation of aircraft carrying strategic nuclear weapons belonging to the Russian Air Force. The pilots, warned by Putin's order, will go to the aid of Russian army, which is struggling not only with Ukrainian soldiers, but also with troubles such as fatigue and lack of ammunition. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said that by sending the pilots to the front, they will set an example for the new recruits to come. According to the statements made, we see that Russia is turning to the last soldier in its hands and Iran. United States intelligence announced that Iran will send 1,000 drones and ballistic missiles to Russia. That's why United States took action. Claims that Iran will provide cruise missiles to Russia together with kamikaze drones have raised the questions of how United States will respond to the shipment of Iranian missiles, which are subject to sanctions within the scope of United Nations Security Council resolution. The United States side announced that Iran's shipments to Russia will be stopped by sanctions. United Nations, European Union, and NATO announced that sanctions against Iran would be increased. I have nothing to announce that United States military will interfere in any way with Iran's arms shipment, said Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Patrick Ryder. Ryder noted that he and the White House discussed various efforts, including sanctions, to curb this arms shipment. expressing that the possibility of Iran providing ballistic missiles to Russia is worrying. United States general said, "The current focus of Ministry of Defense is to quickly deliver the aid needed by the Ukrainians to the region." On the other hand, as a result of the increase in the intensity of the attacks of Ukrainian army on the southern front, Moscow canceled the grain corridor agreements. In this process, the United Nations stated that Ukraine and Turkey grain corridor will continue. What kind of path Russia will follow is eagerly awaited. 12 more ships loaded with grain set off from Ukraine. Russia stated that the route was closed to unilateral transportation and warned that ships that will use the corridor may be the target. The first ship to set sail from Ukraine was Icario Angel. The destination of the ship, loaded with 40,000 tons of grain, is Ethiopia, which is experiencing severe famine. Leaving the Chernomorsk freight port towards midnight, Icario Angel reached the Romanian seas at noon yesterday without encountering any obstacles. The ship was expected to anchor in the Bosphorus this morning for inspection. 12 ships departing from Ukraine transport 355,000 tons of grain to Africa, Asia, and Europe. Russia has no right to privatize the Black Sea waters, the Ukrainian government said. As it is known, the grain contract consists of two separate documents. The first of these is the agreement signed between Turkey, United Nations, and Russia. The second is the document signed by Turkey, the United Nations, and Ukraine. For this reason, Ukraine did not authorize Russia to use the Black Sea waters. At this point, the United Nations, which is seen as the guarantor of the agreement, and Turkey should decide. The parties decided that the agreement with Russia did not bind the agreement with Ukraine and decided to continue the corridor. While Turkey and Ukraine decided to continue the grain corridor without Russia, Moscow signaled that the continuation of the agreement may depend on Kiev's commitments. Making statements in Sochi for the Azerbaijan-Armenia-Russia trilateral summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin said, "The agreement is not finished, it has been suspended," and said, "The attack on Sevastopol has created a danger for our ships." Putin has made this clear. "In fact, we know that because the Russian army attacked Ukraine and did not make any statement regarding this situation, it transferred the agreements to Europe, using its attacks as an excuse, and that Russia's missiles entered the surrounding airspace." Stating that the statements do not reflect the truth, Putin said that there are countries that need help in this process and that they may be in a difficult situation due to their ambitions. Then, critical statements were made by Turkey. Regarding the grain crisis in Ukraine, Minister of National Defense Hulusi Akar said, "In the light of the information we gave to Shoigu, we stated that grain came out of the ports there and that this corridor was used for humanitarian said. Tensions between the two countries increased significantly. Moscow is trying to use the grain corridor agreements as a weapon against Europe. In this process, the countries in the agreement continue to work on the creation of a grain corridor. However, in case of a possible attack by Russia, a major war may break out in the region. Tension has increased considerably. We'll see what happens in the coming days." We have come to the end of another video. You can like the video to support us. By subscribing, you can easily follow new videos. I wish you all happy days. See you.